Hello, nice to see everybody. I will jump right, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. I think that would be good. I'm Frida, Chair of this committee.
I'm Morton Minsley. I'm going to be a new co-chair of the committee. But I've been on the committee board now, I think, this is my second term. Look forward to helping and being a co-chair and focusing on education issues.
Good evening, Nick Spordell from the Battery Park City Authority. I don't often get back to the Youth and Ed Committee anymore. It's been some time. I'm usually bouncing between BPC and Environmental Protection. But good to see everyone. And look forward to chatting.
Andrew Seltzer, Community Board 1 member.
Eric Flores, CB1 member.
Tyler Rashad, CB1 member.
Cody Lyon, CB1 member.
Coming back here too?
Yeah.
Sorry, my name is Joseph. You guys can call me Joey, and I am the grassroots lead for, well, I'm part of the Youth Committee for Transportation Alternatives and the grassroots lead of our $5 paper. $5 city bike for students.
Jacoby, I'm with Transportation Alternatives. I am our Manhattan organizer. But tonight I'm stepping in for our Youth and Schools organizer, Laura Newman, who you've been correspondence with to support Jimmy tonight.
I'm Jim Hannigan. I'm just here about the 320 Pearl Street Safe Haven Shelter.
Welcome, everybody. Very good. We'll jump right in, and hand over the
First,
floor.
it's Darren. Hi,
And
it's
Daryl, oh,
Darren Charcuti, and I'm in a away location, and my phone battery is draining fast. I may not even have more than 10 minutes left on my phone there. Sorry. Just wanted to introduce myself. I've been a Youth and Ed member for 5 years now, I think.
thanks, Darren. And I see Justine is here.
Raise your hand.
Can you raise your hand?
Justine, would you like to say something?
Okay. Okay, good. Tell me your name again.
I'm
Thank you for moving me over.
Welcome, and we from Transportation Alternatives to introduce and talk about the $5 city bike program. So please, take the floor and let us know what you have.
All right.
Sorry, it's not sharing your list.
Okay, thank you.
Just this morning.
Best in the end is spot for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to be your personal space and everything.
Ready again, guys, sorry.
No worries. take your time.
Well, you have it in your hands and like to share it on the screen in a minute.
And we do have it in our hands. So
You do.
why don't we all just look at our flyers, those online? We'll hopefully be able to keep up, and then when it's displayed, see a little more clearly, but, please go on ahead.
Actually, can I wait for the visuals to go up? Because sometimes I use the visual for guidance.
Absolutely.
I'm a very visual learner, and anybody who sits in the classroom with me knows.
No problem. Sorry, I also hand you this.
I think having the screen would
Okay.
It would be nice, but it's not happening. You wanna help me?
reflect the properly.
Let me stop. Let's try again.
Share. Share. This is it. Thank you. Okay,
So people online, what are you seeing right now? Are you seeing the room or are you seeing the presentation?
We're seeing the presentation. Thank you.
Something wrong over here.
You can, yeah. We can see what is the $5 city bike campaign.
So we'll have to follow with our hard copies, but people online are seeing.
Yeah, that's what I was just going with. This is a new TV and we tried to set it up this morning.
What if you go up top right to layout?
Start activating it.
No. People online can see it, and we have our hard, oh, I'm sorry, Joey was looking for,
I'm gonna pull it up for you.
Okay.
go over to the three dots in the circle, but right by the red X.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's spinning now. Yeah, the laptop's not communicating with the screen.
Oh.
Oh, something's happening. Goes on. I have a good. Some water. Well, as long as they can see it, how do you feel about this? Not as good.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you wanna just look through on the laptop for a moment? And
Just from, just in case.
and just get yourself
You can
situated.
go on that laptop. too.
That's true too, I prefer that.
You can sit here. You'd like,
Actually, if we can't get it to work, I think standing here and using Emily's laptop will probably be best.
okay, great.
I'm sorry if I seem like I put such a stickler on that, it's just.
No,
Fine, no worries.
fine, whatever works best for you.
Folks online, are you still seeing the presentation?
Yes, we are
Yes.
still seeing the presentation.
But see, I wouldn't worry about it.
Right, but then I have to come over here and scroll it, so you'll just call me out with it. Go ahead.
Okay.
So we're gonna begin? All right, so while she sets that up, what was I gonna say? Unless like, I mean, this.
Oh, exactly, come on, so just do
Okay.
it.
I'll just go ahead. All right, so good evening, everyone. You guys know my name's Joseph. You guys can call me Joey. Sorry for, the couple minutes, earlier on. I'm part of, as you know, Transportation Alternatives Youth Committee, and we're here to, and I'm here to talk to you guys today about our campaign to reduce the cost of City Bank down to $5,000 a month for all public school, New York City public schools and community students. So what is our campaign? Our goal, I just stated it, and today we'll discuss the need, benefits, and the needs and benefits as it relates to communities here around the financial district and Tribeca. And we'll also discuss community engagement we've done here as well. So the need for better travel options here in Lower Manhattan. Buses in this community board district are the third slowest in the city. Thinking about routes like the M20, M22, M55, it's really hard to rely on them to make those short trips when you need them. And also, you have the issue of this really, like, what's your name? As Morton said it, Morton kind of alluded to earlier, riding, when you need a bicycle here in New York City, particularly around here, City Bike is the best option. Why? There's not really great places to store a personal bike. I'm thinking about different schools in the area, Stuyvesant, Murray Bergstrom, the Broadway campus, these types of schools in somewhere like in and around the financial district and Battery Park City, we have so many different, I'm trying to put this, we have so many different travel modes that need the space. I know the city's trying to get some bike parking on the Upper West Side, and it's a big battle right now. So to really get more space to store bikes, right now it's lacking, and to get it would be a really long road. So would be a very long road. So why City Bike to address these issues? Obviously with City Bike, we have bikes on racks that people can rent. It's way more efficient. And here in the community, we have a good amount of protected bike lanes and greenways, more than in other parts of the city. And our streets are narrower, which makes this just a way more favorable biking environment that our youth should be able to take advantage of. Affordability. Here in Lower Manhattan, it's very unique because unlike public schools in a lot of New York City, students really come from all over the city and even beyond in order to attend school here. Thinking specifically about special, like Stuyvesant High School, for Manhattan Community College and other high schools that people apply to come to this community to go to, they come from a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds. And right now, we might touch on it a little further in the presentation. NYCHA and SNAP recipients already receive discounted city bike $5 a month, and they're known to take advantage of it. But we have a lot of people that don't live in public housing, that don't qualify for SNAP, but affording city bike at, I think they even increased it again, like over $20 a month, is still a challenge for them. Also, recreational activities. We see a lot of youth, just citywide, they want things to do. They want to be able to congregate and they want to have their freedoms. And here in this community, a lot of, it's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of things to do are more expensive than in other parts of the city. A lot of the activities around here, think about museums, attractions, they're tourist oriented, visitors. So for your daily Manhattan night, I have a friend, I personally live in the Bronx. I have a friend that lives in Chelsea, and I asked him, when I met him, what do you like to do for fun? And he told me, video games, simple stuff a kid anywhere in the country could tell you. And I asked him, dude, because I'm a very outgoing, I always have to be outside the house kind of person. I asked him, dude, you live in the middle of the greatest city in the world. You can't find anything better to do? And he told me everything costs money. And it's as simple as that. So our we don't want bike share to be one of those things where the price, because there's so many things that already are cost prohibitive. We don't want bike share to be cost prohibitive as well. Also, large green spaces here in the community. So I'm thinking about places like Rockefeller Park and Battery Park. They're far apart from each other. If let's just say you're a large group of friends and you go to one of the high schools somewhere, let's just say, I'll use the Broadway campus of 25 Broadway as an example. And you want to go to Battery Park, not Battery Park, Battery Park's right there. Rockefeller Park, which is in Battery Park City, that's a pretty good distance to go. Me and a couple of friends, we went from, earlier this spring, we went from Battery Park to Rockefeller Park. Waiting for the M20 and taking that ride is a hassle. To somewhere that would be a very quick city right now. And we have a lot of youth that come from across the city that, I mentioned the recreational activities. If they want to go out with friends for a bite to eat, it costs way more than in other areas. Having a city bike will truly allow residents and commuter and public school students from around the city alike to truly take advantage of what this community really has to offer.
I'm not gonna keep playing with this, I apologize.
You're welcome. I'm sorry for the hassle at the very beginning. So now,
Go on, please.
it's okay. So now I would like to talk a little bit more about just the benefits of youth cycling in general. When you create that additional access and more youth are able to bike, the benefits that are really not just limited to Manhattan CB1. Studies show that as little as 20 to 30 minutes of exercise is linked to better physical and mental health. If you think about how long a ride will take on a city bike to destinations people want to go, you can get a substantial portion of that. And because of the ample parks and physical recreation opportunities here in Manhattan, somebody rides a city bike and plays with their friends in the park, they have that. Sometimes you may even get that number just from the bike ride alone. Biking to school can increase energy levels, attentiveness, better academic performance. We're in a neighborhood because of the conditions I discussed earlier. For a lot of residents, that might actually be possible. And of course, just biking in general is linked to, sorry, I'm trying to find the best way to phrase this. Just biking in general, the more we get people on bikes because of affordability, the more they will be able to reap all these benefits. And of course, cycling is way more carbon efficient than other modes. And Manhattan CB1 has the sixth highest particulate matter rate in the entire city. And I know, yes, these cycling trips may not be replacing many car trips, but you're still gonna have youth that regardless of where in the city they live, they're going to be able to get in a habit of a positive, healthy, and green recreational mode that can help to alleviate emissions, not just here, but citywide for years down the line. And now I want to talk a little bit more about the outreach we've done throughout the city and here in CB1. We have a petition we're at about 900 signatures at this point. We've gotten in touch with more than 80 schools and community organizations citywide. Right now, our goal is to present to community boards like you guys. Here in CB1, we have talked to teens in Rockefeller Park. We went to Rockefeller Park a couple times. We went to Battery Park once this spring. We're trying to meet teens where they are, where they're hanging out with their friend groups and in the situations they're in, to see how much this will benefit them. And especially here in the financial district, I've always gotten a positive response. And it's hard, especially around here when you have so many street vendors and your stuff going on and people are always on the go. It's hard to get people to stop and listen to you for a couple of seconds. But the consensus I've gotten from teams here and throughout the city, it's always an emphatic yes, 9 times out of 10 to support and just talk about how much this will benefit them for the reasons that I've discussed already so far. And in January, we hope to meet with the City Bike Equity Team to demonstrate the support we have. Some concerns that we've heard from folks across the city: safety, trying to enforce helmet use and bike etiquette. We understand that's an issue here in New York City. I personally, as a pedestrian, I've had some close encounters with bikes, so I understand some people's hesitation when it comes to encouraging more ridership, let alone group ridership. But we do have plans to work with City Bike and New York City Public Schools. We've devised multiple potential solutions to really make these things stable. And we hope that because we think reducing the price can truly generate, because we saw what happened with NYCHA residents when it came to City Bike and the discount program. They took it up really strongly. Our hope is that if we get similar take with the youth, we have so much more ridership and we have a safety culture, this will encourage not just the new youth that'll be riding, but just everyone, whether it's a City Bike or not in New York City, just riding safely, being able to share the road with motorists, pedestrians, and other modes of travel will just bring us to a better place where everyone can coexist well. Even hopefully better than where we stand right now. Proving eligibility, this is something that we have to specifically work out the kinks with our stakeholders, City Public Schools, CUNY, and Lyft, because obviously, and we know schools often have their individual student ID systems. CUNY has its own system. Obviously, Lyft has its own ways to obtain a bike. So how we're going to prove that discount is something we are definitely planning to work out. And funding the program, TA, this isn't just the youth committee thing, but TA has a bigger campaign to get her City Bike to become a publicly run program as opposed to being run by Lyft because of the profit motive and everything that comes with that. But even though that's the umbrella, we still believe that Mayor Adams and the city should devote funding for this initiative just because of the immense benefits and public support we have so far. And with that, just to sum it up, key takeaways: students will have more reliable trips in CB1 than they currently do from our buses for those short local trips. Bike share offers a plethora of physical.
Lucy, is that you or is that?
That's the way you, even the,
Yeah, bike share offers a plethora of physical and mental health benefits that standing on the M22, stuff on Chambers Street does not. And the risks, the concerns that we discussed earlier can be mitigated through interagency cooperation in addition to coordination with Lyft. With that, I open the floor for any questions.
Yes.
I love this. I work at BMCC though.
Oh, wow.
And so, but something I'd like to see across the board are lower, and I support the public, the TA broader campaign for a publicly run bike share, maybe owning the infrastructure and just contracting out to Lyft, but this is what you're working on. So, that said, so to alleviate concerns of people who, worry about, again, the safety issues and that sort of thing. We've seen the spike that we've seen as far as crashes in bikes this past year have all been mostly electric bikes. I don't know if that means like electric city bikes or not, but it is a concern, for a lot of young folks who haven't ridden bikes before, getting them up to speed on, bike safety. You address that, excuse me, you address that. I think that's my throat. Really wanted to sort of follow up. I suppose like that's a priority, and also, would it be all CUNY students regardless of age? You're speaking youth, but students.
16 plus.
16 plus, so that would encompass all CUNY students regardless of age. And you asked like, how much do we plan to make safety a priority?
Yeah.
Of course, safety is paramount to any successful transportation program. Transportation alternatives, I mentioned the broader campaign with the funding, but at our core, we're here for safer. Our main focus is safety across the board. More of our initiatives as of not have to do with pedestrian safety and reducing crashes. So it would be counterintuitive to our mission for us to try and push through a program like this without, if 99.9% of our work is based off safety already, it's gonna be counterintuitive to us to not consider it at all in a campaign like this. So absolutely working that out is 100% a priority for us.
I'll comment. Number one, as I said before we started, I'm a big user of City Bike. I've used the City Bike since day one. It's an inception, it's one of the best initiative, in my opinion, in terms of transportation around the city in my lifetime. I support having a reduced rate for students. I trust the students. When my own son is 26 years old now, when he originally, they didn't have, he was living uptown and they didn't have the docks uptown. But as soon as they installed docks uptown, I got him a membership in City Bike and he went all over. The one concern I do have is when he was using it, they didn't have the gray electric City Bike. They only had the blue powered City Bikes and the regular pedal powered bikes. A little concerned about using the gray ones because they do go very fast and some of the adults who use them are pretty reckless sometimes. And I'm wondering whether it's something to think about, whether the students might be restricted to the others, the regular ones and the slower electric bikes. But I think that's something that could be studied. Overall, I think it's a great idea, a great program, and especially in terms of reducing the cost for students. I think students should be encouraged to use the bikes and the cost should not be apparent. One thing.
Thanks, Norton. Anybody else?
I'm all in.
Mullen? Oh, all in?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderful. I think if we can address some things like that, particularly safety, but, I'm all for reducing fares for young people, giving them opportunities to have more mobility, exercise. I think it's win-win.
I'm second that 500% because, transportation equity is an issue, and especially among CUNY students. I know that from BMCC. So, I have anything to broaden their access to getting to class every day.
Yeah.
In a healthy way.
Yeah, affordable transportation is one of the only reasons people can even afford to live in New York City.
That's right.
Like, it's just
Yes.
a no-brainer to be.
Sure, Eric?
Appreciate the safety portion, but what have you done? What have you done to inform this group of people who you wanted to have this for, of the safety issues that are out there? I know with the community board, a lot of, with the city bikes, has to do with city bikes being ridden on the street. Have you looked into the laws as it pertains specifically to how bikes are used in the city of New York?
Yeah, well, bike law, yeah, I'm trying to find the right way to answer your question. As far as bike law goes, you know, there's certain things I feel like I'm gonna give a personal take and answer. I'm definitely gonna answer your question. Bike law, there's certain things that so I'm just trying to find my words a little bit. When it comes to bike law, most of the important things are kind of self-explanatory. Like, you're not, I think it's below 13, you're not supposed to ride on the street. No, this time, 13 and up, you have to ride on the street. You have to stop at traffic signals, things like that. There's certain things that should, basically the obvious. I feel as far as, because we're doing this outreach to youth. As far as we will, when the program is going to be implemented, and you know, when we start having those conversations with Lyft, and we head toward implementation, we will definitely have work with them to develop a robust framework for ensuring that youth, like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, not only ride safely, we develop a culture of safety that spreads to our new city bike users, existing city bike users, non-city bike users who ride their bikes throughout the city. We're gonna have that safety culture developed, but at this stage in time, when I'm doing the outreach to young people, because when I want them to see the benefits of this, I'm not trying to push something through, because we ultimately have to work out all the case. That's just a pillar of good public health. But when I'm doing my initial outreach to gain support of the plan, so they can relish the ultimate goal of a 17-year-old to a 16-year-old, I'm not gonna tell them, we want you to support this so you can have this. And if I start talking about bike law and things like that, they're gonna think that they'll come up with something crazy and they'll walk right away. So it's very important that, and this really comes for any, not just, I'm really glad you brought this up, because I feel like this goes not just for this campaign, but for any transportation policy where we're trying to find my wording here, but because now we have, obviously, City Bike is still, in the grand scheme of transportation, it's only been like a little over 10 years, right? It's only been a little over 10 years. Now we have e-scooter share and cargo bikes and these new things coming around. Whenever we have a new mode, it's very important that we are ready to accept the benefits these things should offer, but we show that to people, because we don't want to seem all doom and gloom with it, but then we say, you have to be safe. And we have to do it in a much better way than we did with the automobile and make sure we get it right. And we're gonna make sure we get it right with this.
So I just want to follow up. I like the idea. I like the basics of the idea to get people to ride bicycles more. But I think when you go through your conversations and when you go through implementing this, you need to come back to us with a safety plan. And I do bicycle law. So I know that there are specifics out there that you do not know of. And it is a part of riding a bicycle as it is a part of riding a car. So I absolutely support this. And when you're ready, we can have a conversation on how we can help better. Okay.
Yeah, 100%, we will have safety benefits.
Thank you.
That's very, very important.
Desi?
Yeah, so one thing that you might consider is, again, bringing on, you know, like sort of an education partner to be able to really enforce and not just enforce, but really have true education around bike safety. So I work with the Department of Health, and we have a program where we give free car seats to families because you're mandated to have a car seat to be able to bring your baby home from the hospital. And so in order to get the car seat, they have to take a safety class, and someone from the Department of Transit comes and they show them how to install it and the whole deal. And then they get the car seat right then and there. And so that might be something to consider when you're working out a safety plan, some sort of incentive, and I'm not sure what that could be. You know, maybe they get some points toward a driver's license. I mean, you could, you know, sort of figure out what sweetens the pot for them, but being able to maybe build in some incentive around taking a safety class that is specific to bike law and bike safety, I think is going to enhance your program.
Yeah, definitely, 100%, it's a good idea.
I would concur with that, and also, you know, as a parent of now 21-year-olds, I don't know one of them that wore a helmet. And I think that, in fact, it came with the territory almost, is that they made fun of adults wearing helmets.
Because they thought they looked funny.
So this won't be a small thing to jump over, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think that we're obviously, you've heard in this room, we're all very supportive of the idea. But as parents, in our experience with these things, and with a family member with a brain injury from one of these things, I think it would be great if we could have a little bit more information on what that safety plan looks like and the logistics of it. And it sounds like you have a few more hurdles to jump as well. And so maybe what we could do is, you know, hold this, we like all the points in it, but when you get a little further in this process, as per your calendar here, come back, like in January or February, after you've gotten over some of those hurdles, come back and talk to us about what you've been able to discover in terms of what's possible in that safety plan. And then I think we can develop the points of the resolution a little bit better in concert with you at that time, if that's acceptable.
100%, we were definitely on board.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
There's another question?
I'm really fond of the idea, like, mad dope, I'm a student myself at the UCC, so I think, like, you know, the idea of just paying $5 a month for city rent program is fine. Also, as a student myself, I think it just prompted me to have, you know, 2 questions, right? You know, like, just basic economics, like, you know, you lower the cost of something, there's gonna be an influx of, you know, purchase. So if you do that, right, like it'd be $5, I'm concerned if there might not be bikes available for me to, you know, ride, you know, especially in the area I have to walk from point A to point B, like 15-minute walk. Have you thought about that?
To be honest, I definitely agree with you. Economics, we're gonna have an influx of demand. It's really hard to gauge because we know, otherwise we wouldn't be here, that this is of immense public benefit, hence we wanna go for it. But we're not exactly sure. It's really hard to project when we're talking about an access thing to something as valuable as City Bike. How much is it really gonna be taken up? And we've heard the concerns here about safety that we're something gonna iron out. But a lot of parents and even youth themselves also have those concerns. So how many are gonna wanna ride? How many are gonna feel like it's beneficial for their trips? Because, you know, CB1, as far as the map goes, is a very small portion of Manhattan. This issue basically is more cumulative of the entire city. There's certain trips that you may or may not make on City Bike for so many reasons that would take probably us months and months to evaluate. So when the time comes, I mean, our idea is that this will result in more profit for Lyft as well, simply because more people will be able to afford the price. So it's definitely something we'll consider more down the line, and hopefully Lyft, you know, if they want to see what we feel like is their benefit for this, they'll have a plan of their own too.
One more, just a little bit curious, that's it.
Okay.
I wanted to know what would be like the outreach efforts for schools, like let's throw like students,
Right.
pay $5 a month, you know, like basically that we get a notification about it.
Yeah, we haven't, I'm gonna be honest, we haven't fully ironed that out yet because we're not there yet. I'm really excited for the day when that's the biggest thing on our to-do list. I have some preliminary ideas, what was I gonna say? What am I trying to say? Email blasts, communicating to principals, school visits, drafting, how like, because I'm sure you're at BMCC, you were in high school not too long ago. I was in high school just last year. You get memos about stuff. Hopefully, like we draft one for schools to use. And also include the bike safety some bike safety information in there. But those are just some preliminary ideas, but I can't wait to get to that point and you'll see the answer then.
We have one comment online that says perhaps consider bike safety training in schools. So before they get out onto the road, to have the schools have some ownership in the process could be a great idea. So thank you for that. Anyone else? Any comments?
I have one quick question. It's maybe too early in the process, but as far as, are you looking for maybe subsidies or like from like CUNY or from DOE or just looking to lift to give you to go with a discount?
Well, we have, ideally, like we mentioned earlier, we would love government subsidies for these kinds of things.
Sure.
We actually did speak, we had a preliminary conversation with Lyft way earlier, may have even been like late 2023. We had a preliminary, our supervisor Lauren had a preliminary conversation with Lyft. And they told us that as it stands right now, they didn't speak about a subsidy at that moment, but they did mention no, they did sorry to find the words again. They did say like as it stands, we have to have like a partner. The way the NYCHA and SNAP discount help first funds a lot of that. So hopefully with our momentum and engagement, we could consider that route as well.
As I said, they would be best positioned to decide what the economic impact is gonna be. You would think that with a lot more students using it at $5 a month, that's gonna be additional income. But as opposed to students who are already using it, who are paying the full price, they're gonna have reduced income. So the net economic impact is hard to determine. They would be best positioned to try to figure it out. If it's a net loss to them, then perhaps some subsidy would be in order. And I just want to say, I tend to trust the students. I see a lot of young people riding the city bikes all over the city. I don't think they're any more reckless or dangerous than anybody else. I see a lot of adults who ride recklessly and some don't. But I tend to have trust in the students, and I think it'd be great for students to have access to the program.
We're rooting for you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll have you back anytime. So
Thank you
just
so
let us know when you're at that point.
Perfect. We'll follow up with you all and thank you.
Very good for hearing your presentation. Yeah. All the best. All right, moving right along. We are very lucky to have Mr. Nick Scorbone in-house today. If you don't know him, he is the Oz behind everything that works at Battery Park City, especially our fields. And so Nick is here today to talk to us about some padding and turf replacement that they're going to be doing over there. So take it
Sure.
away, Nick.
Thank you very much. Lucy, are we up on?
It's not coming up.
It's not coming up. Okay.
We just got this TV today, so something obviously is not set up right.
That's okay. So people online can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'm gonna
We
do,
have our little,
and everyone here has it in hard copy. Perfect. So let me just bring it up on my phone so I can guide it through. And thank you, everyone. As Tricia had said, I said at the top of the meeting, I don't, not usually you can add much anymore, but it's really a pleasure to be back. So thank you for having us. I'm also on the WebEx. My colleague Angela Howard is also there as well for any questions that may come up as we go. But I wanted to certainly be back before you tonight and update the community board on some work we have coming up at the Battery Park City Ball Field, as Tricia had graciously introduced them. by describing, and I know Andrew, had spoken very eloquently about them as well. They're one of the great green spaces in Lower Manhattan, roughly 80,000 square foot playing surface. They're used by roughly 50,000 or more local youth a year, from Little League, baseball, softball, soccer, youth football, local schools, Asphalt Green Community Center, which is right there, youth all around the local downtown area and beyond use them. They're great public assets. And they figure in a lot of what we do in Battery Park City, not only the parks programming and events and open space that we provide, but also as one of our 3 large-scale resiliency projects that we have undertaken over the years at Battery Park City. The first one out of the gate is Battery Park City ball fields, and they're protected now from storm surge and sea level rise as a result of a lot of work we're doing as part of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Initiative. What we are discussing tonight is we have some updates on some work that needs to be done over at the fields over the course of the coming months. I go into it a little bit here in the presentation, but the long and the short of it is ball field repairs and upgrades broadly. 2 parts to it. One of the things that we've heard a lot about recently, and we know, is that the padding on the ball fields, around the walls and along some of the light poles, has aged in some places. In some places, in very good shape. Some places it's in very bad shape. The fields are heavily used and they need to be replaced. So that is a project that should begin in the next few weeks, call it month or so. And that's a fairly straightforward proposition. The padding itself will be entirely replaced. It'll be new. It'll be crisp, clean. Won't have any more peeling or scratching or cracking. So it's fairly straightforward proposition from there. The second part of what we wanted to just discuss, you'll see that on page 2, is the turf itself, the turf surface of the ball fields needs replacement. This is a common occurrence with turf fields, wherever turf fields exist. Turf has a certain lifespan, after which it needs to be replaced. So those of you who may recall have been at the board or involved in Battery Park City goings on for some time, is the last time the turf was replaced was in the aftermath, God bless us, of Hurricane Sandy. The field, as you may recall, were wiped out from water flowing down the West Side Highway and into the field from the eastern edge. It was replaced and it was open in time for the opening day of 2013. So it's been about 11 or so years, and the turf is at the end of its useful life. It needs to be replaced. As part of that, there are a number of upgrades we are going to be pursuing in addition to the turf. But first, just a word on kind of timing and why now and why here. So as we know, and as I've led it already a little bit based on the conversation, the ball fields are heavily used. They start up mid-March, April timeframe and run through the balance of the spring, summer, and fall. Permits run right up until Thanksgiving. And then the fields are not permitted for the months of December, January, and February. So what's helpful to us is we basically have a very finite window that we want to make sure we complete the work in, so we're not impacting unduly the heavy use by local youth leagues. And we want to try and hit that window as best we can. So long story short, and I'll get to the slide in a second with the timeline, we want to make sure that we are starting this work in the winter months, so as not to impact the leagues that are ongoing now, or that will run through Thanksgiving or start up again and pick up in the early fall. Very briefly, you'll see there on slide 2, I'm not going to go through every last aspect of it, but the long and the short of it is the padding we covered, the turf and its component parts will be replaced with new surfacing. There's some additional netting to protect the viewing areas and the walkway that runs from ramp to ramp between Warren and Murray Streets, for those of you who are familiar. Weatherproofing the dugout roofing. So the dugouts, for those of you who know, are not exactly a porous top, but if it's raining or it's bad conditions, we have some built into the scope there to replace the roofing of the bullpens. The backstops, just wear and tear over the course of the years, will be repaired. Misters. So, for those of you familiar with the turf at West Thames Lawn, there are two kind of metallic cylindrical water misters. You can press a button and get misters on, so that will help the players on some of the very hot days. And we will also be adding in the dugouts rather, small things that make a difference to a team over the course of a season. So hooks to hang helmets and bats and equipment bags, so it's not laying on the floor of the dugout when guys and gals are getting up to get their turn at bat and not tripping over equipment. Small things along those lines. And then the other thing we are working on, and we wanted to make sure that the committee was aware of, there are a series of trees along the outfield perimeter of the fence, about 10 or so. And there is what is known as, for those of you in the environmental space, a bioswale. A bioswale is a kind of natural embankment that's usually used to capture storm runoff and reduce pollution in areas where there is a lot of water. There's a bioswale installed along the fence line where the turf ends, which is fine as far as it goes. It's a relatively difficult area to maintain, and some of the trees there are going to be removed. 5 trees I think there's a total of 10 or 11 on the field, to expand the playing surface, to have it run up to the fence instead of having trees essentially on the playing surface. So that's for player safety and also for maintenance considerations. There will be water bottle fillers instead of water fountains, as we know, and it's becoming increasingly more popular, which is, I think, helpful for a number of reasons, not least of which is because we want to have and promote zero waste in our parks instead of people using disposable water bottles. Oftentimes people bring their own. We'll have water fillers instead of water fountains. And we will have permeable pavers on the walkway path. So between the two ramps, when you walk along that pathway with netting that's going to now protect you, there'll be permeable pavers between that, bless you, and the two dugouts. What permeable pavers are, and we've discussed this at some other committees, is when there is heavy rains or storms, the water, instead of running off, is actually permeates into the ground. So it's not running off, and contributing to flooding and other adverse conditions as a result of the storm. So if you could run there, Lucy, I'm sorry, to the next slide, a quick update on timing for the benefit of the committee. So we are in early October. The RFP was to just the end of last month. We are.
Sorry, that's not on the slide that.
Slide 3.
There we go. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, it was.
We will look to have a vendor selected and approved this month. And again, this goes back to what I was saying in terms of having a very finite window to conduct the work and wanting to make sure we hit that mark. We have November, December, and January to execute the contract, do pre-construction, drawing, walkthroughs, et cetera. And then have the construction start in December, January, and February with an eye toward a goal of ensuring that the fields are open by March 1. Okay, also, alternatively, in addition, making sure the fields can stay open through the course of the current permit season, which I said runs through and up to Thanksgiving. Now, that said, I don't want to sit here and make a guarantee that I can't deliver on. Andrew and I discussed this a little bit as well. The goal is March 1. As anyone who knows who's been involved or has observed construction anywhere, there are things that will come up. So we are obviously aware of certain schedule risks and considerations. Weather, obviously, because it's the middle of winter in New York City. There are supply chain issues. There could be material delays, manpower delays. It doesn't mean that we are not keeping our eye on March 1 goal. We just want to make sure that we're being clear for the committee and the larger community board writ large that we will have a better and more precise sense of timing once the contractor is onboarded toward the end of this month. And then obviously we'll be working with league leadership, Andrew and Co, to keep the Little League especially apprised of what the schedule is going to look like. Because as the first season out of the gate in the new year, they would be one of the most impacted by the scheduled field reopening. So with that, I will open it to any questions, but I certainly want to give the committee the community board overall, an update on that needed work to replace the turf, which again is at the end of its life and has to be replaced. This is the window in which to do it. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
And thank you for the consideration to work with our schedules.
yeah.
That's no easy feat for sure. And, you know, obviously we're hoping for the best in terms of those potential pitfalls with the schedule, but
Right.
you can only do what you can do. We're having the same problem actually at our co-op with lead times, like 5 weeks for simple materials.
Yeah.
So it's tricky.
Right.
But if they have a contractor selected in October, that should leave plenty of time. They plan to start the work in January, it
Right.
sounds like.
In the December, January, that window, right? Right, because even with contracts on board, there's like that, the drawings and pre-construction work, but all that stuff is happening. We want it to happen, you know, with all due deliberate haste.
Andrew, did anything happen at those fields? I mean, I know it's not regular league play, but what happens there usually in December through March? Anything structured?
I don't know, well, structured from the standpoint of activities. The
Yeah.
Giants have run sort of ad hoc flag football.
Mhm.
Giants are aware of what's going on. I've spoken to them. They've been able to make other arrangements. So
The New York
while,
Giants.
while the youth Giants.
The downtown.
So certainly while impactful, the
Uh-huh.
program is of a size that they've been able to find other resources during those months.
Fantastic.
So just a couple of comments. First, if you're not aware, I think Nick was being a bit humble. These are without question the best facilities in the city for what they were designed for, bar none. And year after year, when we host folks from around the city and outside the city, they just comment on how spectacular a facility it is. And I think it's no coincidence that along the areas controlled by BPCA and HRPT, we have the best facilities. These are organizations who just are able to navigate and run projects better than we see elsewhere. Also, this isn't just a replacement. I really want to emphasize, and I want to give kudos to the authority. This is an upgrade. There are a lot of amenities or resources that they're incorporating into the plan, which will just really bring this to a state-of-the-art facility. So we're excited about that. This is an aggressive timetable. It is. I have every confidence the authority understands the impact of what it means if it's April 1st versus March 1st, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. And I'm confident the authority is aware of that. We've asked to have sort of monthly updates as to the project so we can assess, okay, are there some things in order to get the turf down so that at least we can get the kids on the field? Maybe we can somehow work a schedule to build those other things around getting the turf down. And again, we'll have to see how that plays out. We've also been speaking to parks today, in fact, about contingent city parks, yeah. So Department of Parks in New York City, about contingency plans. They've sort of morphed or evolved their permitting rules, so we're kind of in a little bit of limbo in terms of understanding what that impact might be, but again, on paper, it's an absolutely fabulous project. I think there's absolute awareness of how critical it is to be really tight with this, and if we're at the table having monthly communications, I think we'll be able to strategize as to how to make sure we have a program this spring if the winter works against us, as we're seeing with some of the weather patterns right now.
Yeah, good luck with this, doing this during this season. Yeah.
Do they have the funding or the ability to work overtime hours on this project? Like if they do have trouble with weather or something, are they green lighted to be able to work in?
Oh, it's what you're saying.
Because they have lighting.
Yeah, they have lighting. It's funny. The contract is not in place yet. But again, I really emphasize that without putting too fine a point on the timeline. You know, the goal is March 1, and we're gonna make sure that we are
Okay.
doing our best to get as close as we can, to that mark. Again, I don't want to guarantee it until I know I have a schedule.
Yeah.
But as Andrew said, we are well aware of the implications of it and the importance of doing our best to make that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anybody online?
Beautiful technology, right?
Looks like Justine has a
Just,
question.
Just.
That's what you get for getting a new TV. See that? Thank you.
Exactly. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for recognizing me, and I'm sorry to crash your meeting. And Nick, it's nice to see you. Sorry I'm not there in person for flipping screens here.
Thank you.
But I have two questions. One is just, do you have the material yet to repair, replace the padding on the seating, whatever you want to call it? Because I know that that has been in disarray since like over a year,
Yeah.
and I know the party line has been that it's been under. You've been ordering it, looking for it, trying to get it. Do we have that? Is that going to hold us up?
So the padding is, I want to say the padding is close. So the short answer is no, but close. And the reason is, for the benefit of the committee, the padding itself is not custom designed. I mean, padding is padding, but it's custom sized for the field. So for those of you who are familiar with it, there are kind of different shapes and sizes of the length of the padding. And then there are also parts of the field, as it pulls away from West Street and goes up, the wall itself kind of telescopes up, and the padding itself will raise not only in a change in width, but also change in height. So there's some specificity around the custom sizing of the padding. None of these challenges are insurmountable. It just means it's taking a while. Long story short, we're very close to getting the contractor in to do the padding. For the public's kind of perspective, I guess, the ball fields are the ball fields of the ball field. From our perspective, they're two separate contractors. We're hoping that the padding will be able to go first and then the turf, but both with an eye toward making sure that they're done by time the spring happens.
By the time, so they're two separate contracts, two separate things. Very interesting.
It's
Okay.
the ball fields of the ball fields, right? But yes, technically it's two separate contracts. So one is not necessarily kind of dependent on the other. If we get the padding done and in, we will do that even as the turf upgrades and replacement is proceeding apace.
All right. Now that's very cool to know, and that's good.
I do know that it's a sore spot, and I was out there today just kind of walking the site. Some parts of the padding, as I said, looks great. Some of it looks terrible. So, we're aware that we got to fix it, and we are doing it as quickly as we can.
Thank you. And then I want to, I got one more thing. I want to echo what was said about, the quality of what you're planning to do. I think that's wonderful, and I'm glad it's an upgrade. But I do need to ask about the time of construction, because remember that there are apartment buildings right upstairs, and there's the school I guess it's next door, but there's apartments upstairs, so people are living there, facing the fields. So as much as this needs to get done quickly, nighttime work, I would love, at this point in time, you're not going to know, so I don't expect you to commit to anything. But what I would like is to have that same kind of construction liaison like we have with Katie for the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project, and more for a quality of life kind of thing. As much as you're going to be giving updates about the timing of the finishing of the project, we also want to know and have someone who we can call if there's a problem with sound, with light, and to get warning ahead of time if there's going to be loud noises going on. And I'm sorry, I know that's not youth and education. I'm sorry, but I had to ask it.
I should clarify, when I meant night, we lose our light at 4:00 at the time.
Point, yes, good point.
So I
Yes.
wasn't talking about 10 PM.
Yeah.
I was just talking about like 4 to 7 can be super useful. And very difficult in the winter when you have such short days to get this kind of work done. And so that's really what I meant. more than
It's
anything.
very helpful, and thank you, Justine. Angela, I noted is online, she's also letting me know. So just as we have it now, again, contract not in place, but the construction is contemplated taking place during regular hours. Again, there just was new made, Andrew, we will stay in touch on that, but it's scheduled to be regular hours. But Justine, if it's helpful for you to know, the construction isn't noisy at all, is what Angela's telling me.
Right.
The demo, when I say demo, people who demo, they think like jackhammers. This isn't that, this is demo meaning the pulling up of the old material, the recycling of it to the extent that we can do it in keeping with our sustainability practices. and then the laying of the new turf. It's not particularly noisome. Nonetheless.
Excellent. No, that's wonderful. And yeah, I definitely didn't mean to say you have to stop it, whatever, but middle of the night work would be heinous.
Yes.
But yet again, if it's necessary to keep that, March 1st deadline, talk to us and let us know, because that March 1st deadline is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also will have the experience of what the construction's like to live with by then too.
Right.
So,
That's a
Right,
good,
that's-
yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay,
all
thank you.
right, anyone else? Desi?
I was curious about the budget for this.
TBD, because we're on the contract yet. But we can, I wish I had a ballpark, I don't. But once the contract is signed, we can mention it.
All right. Nick, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you coming and letting us know. It's really excited.
I have to be back with you thing more often than every
You're always
4 or
invited.
5 years. That's what it is.
Will we
Always
be able to
invited.
use it for weddings and?
Good, yeah.
Parties?
You know, as long as you're here,
Yes.
and
The
speaking about
misters?
electric bikes,
Yes.
there have been a couple of super close calls in the park
Okay.
with electric bikes. I'm over there every day. I walk the park every afternoon.
Rockefeller or Lower Down?
But I go all the way down to the Battery and up to Pier 26. And along that whole stretch, we're seeing electric bikes
Okay.
on the walking path.
On the Greenway, you mean on?
Yeah, and I've seen some really close calls
Okay.
and just something, and there was also like a motorized skateboard this kid was on. And he was going at least 15 miles an hour on this thing and almost took out, I mean, he did hit a couple people when I was there, that fortunately they were large men who could take it in stride, but
Right.
he narrowly missed
Good.
like strollers and people who would not have, rebounded so well from that hit.
Okay.
And I've seen the skateboard guy about 5 or 6 times in the past 2 weeks. And then the electric bike thing has just been ongoing, and
Is
I
there-
wondered what had.
Yeah,
their
is there a
force-
particular time when you see the skateboard guy, you see?
It's definitely between, my world over there is between 4 and 7.
In the afternoon?
So it's after school, yeah.
Okay.
And are you seeing it, is it more prolific sort of north of high school, Stuyvesant High School?
You know,
Or,
the stretch is between Stuyvesant and 26, really.
yeah, which actually is HRPT territory, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh,
And that's-
okay.
and that's something we discuss every month at the advisory council meeting. And
Okay.
they've tried different strategies.
They should just have a big
Ultimately, it's
clothesline.
the police department, they just have been slow to engage.
And then, they have continued down
Yeah.
along the Greenway in front of the Great Lawn,
Right,
where, it's also tricky.
it is.
It's a little less dense there, but it's still tricky, and I'm just afraid someone's gonna get, they're going 15 or 20 miles an hour. It's
It's a-
not like
it's a
just a
challenge.
fast bike ride.
I'm glad to know the conversation's happening in HR.
Yeah.
It's happening, but without solution. It's just, it's a really difficult
It's
problem.
tough, because even as soon as it happens, even if you call, the
They're
person's
gone.
So you have to either almost set up some type of like sting operation or targeted enforcement at a particular date and time and place, and hopefully you get who the offender is. It's a
You're
challenge.
right. It's a sting operation with, we did that with the food trucks. I don't know if you all remember that. Oh my gosh. Well, we just had food trucks, going up onto the sidewalk in front of the schools, like backing them up over the sidewalk. And by the time they were reported, they would just, take off. And so the Department of Health did in concert with the NYPD, you have to ticket them. They lose their license.
Right.
So they did basically a sting operation, and to make it stick, they came back every 4 days.
Right.
Because if you do it once and then don't
Well,
show,
otherwise it's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not sure what we envision when we say a sting operation, but the police have set up checkpoints, and the problem is stopping someone who's traveling at 15 or 20 miles an hour
Yeah.
without creating a safety hazard. So they've tried that, and it hasn't been effective, so it's not been an ongoing strategy to any great extent.
And are you talking about along the bike lanes and the Greenway?
no bike lanes. I'm talking about, because they're allowed in the bike lanes.
Yeah, well, not really,
Well, the electric bikes just take full reign of the bike lanes.
they're not supposed to be.
Right, no, I'm talking about where they're walking. They're walking side against the river. We have motorized vehicles on that part of the park, and it's really worrisome. And, Andrew's given us, one of many reasons it's probably really hard to control. But I'd still like to try.
There are not supposed to be any bikes along those areas.
There is not.
Right.
I mean, pedal bikes or anything. I, like as a biker, I use the west side bike lanes, especially during the summertime, when it was nice, I go up the west side. And constantly delivering bikes, motorized scooters, what's the ones they call them like hoverboards, but they're not, the ones where somebody stands on them and they
Yeah.
balance on them with one wheel. And anything that's powered, they're going like much too fast.
Oh, you mean like those, I know.
That might be the thing I was describing, actually.
It's,
It was something I hadn't seen before.
And mopeds.
And mopeds, yeah.
And which are, so I did see a stain once on the bike path. Like once, and, but it was up on Christopher Street.
They've tried it a number of
Yeah, like-
times, a number of different locations.
And I mean, because the same thing with mopeds on the bike lane and the bridge, that type of stains.
No. All right, well,
To be continued,
we
but let's
continued on that
stay in touch.
one. Question online? Been-
A segue.
Yeah.
That's what they're called.
No, the segways are the big bulky thing. I'm talking about it's like a little wheel with a platform and people ride them. And I don't know what they're called.
You activate it with your body weight if you.
Yeah.
Oh,
All about it.
It's like,
I thought it was dog control. But it's supposed to be like Michael J. Fox and Back to the Future.
It's like the movie, one boat, bicycle.
Are we,
Yeah.
We just have one more question. Janine?
Hi, guys. Thank you. This is way less fun than a motorized unicycle or whatever those things are. Nick, thank you very much for the update on the ball fields, and I really
Sure.
appreciate the timeline. I have a kid in the little league, so we appreciate and know how close you'll try to stick to that. I want to switch topics just briefly. As a parent of a super little, I have a kid who's at Kowski Playground a lot. I know there's been a lot of chatting in the neighborhood, but I just wanted to bring my concern to this group. The sand that has been replaced in Kowski is just not playground sand. I know there's been some conversations that it was supposed to be of a certain grade or not, but it's just brown. It's staining everyone's clothes. And the more people I talk to, the more people are just not going to that playground because it's causing such an issue. So I just wanted to bring that up here and see if there's any thoughts of how that could be addressed.
Yeah, thanks, Janine. I got a few emails about sand. I won't say I got a large number, but a handful, maybe half dozen or so. I've been down there actually, believe it or not. I was intrigued enough to say, this sounds very interesting. I've been down there a couple of times. And first time I went down there it was a little more damp. But the last few times I've been down there, it's actually fairly dry. I took pictures of it as well, but if you'd like to meet sometime, we can get my information and we can take a walk. It is, I've been down there a few times. One time, weeks ago, it's weird. I'm like a weirdo in a suit taking pictures of a kid in the park, but literally, I work for the authority. And there were about 10 kids there having the time of their life rolling around. They didn't look particularly wet or dirty to me. The sand seemed pretty dry. But I will note that as a general matter, Kowski has more shade cover than West Thames Playground does, or Rockefeller or Teardrop for that matter, which could be contributing to the fact that maybe sand doesn't dry out as frequently. But I was there a few times literally, and I held the sand in my hand. It looks pretty dry. If it persists though, certainly something I'm happy to monitor and continue to be in touch with you on.
Yeah, that's part of that maintenance as well, right?
Yeah, the sand is raked every day. We have 3 playgrounds in Battery Park City. They all are, knock on wood, meticulously maintained as our ball fields are. So I'm aware of it. But my experience, at least, has been only one person's. It's been fairly dry since I've been down there. I would like to see how it continues to develop as the season gets worse and it rains and snows. Of course, we don't field or the playground as much in the winter, but nonetheless, I'm aware of it and I'll continue to monitor for you.
Yeah, just to add on to that, it's really not an issue of dampness or not. It's actually the quality of the sand and the color of the sand.
Yeah.
I if you see the kids get barefoot or the kids in the clothes, I mean, they don't care. They're having the time of their life. But when they come home, then everything they wear has to either be thrown away or at best soaked for a couple days to try to get those like brown stains out. It's just a different quality. It's really not about the dampness. I know that that like may seem like what we're talking about, but it's really the quality of the sand is very different than the sand in, let's say, Rockefeller or West Ames. So, and I know it's been updated recently. I know we're going into winter, but I guess as we look to next spring and where we potentially could refresh it, maybe there's an opportunity to refresh that sand again with a more appropriate white non-staining sand.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
All right, thank you.
And please come visit us more regularly. We'd love to see you.
Okay, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Look forward to updates.
Okay, thank you. You
All
too.
right.
Thank you for that. Thanks for doing that.
All right, moving on, for those of you who may have joined us at Quality of Life, about the Safe Haven Shelter, that is going up literally next door to Peck Slip School, shares a wall with the school. The resolution passed that night was that it is not an appropriate location for this kind of shelter. It's not a family shelter, it's not a women's shelter, it is a men's shelter. And there were some great arguments made, there was a vibrant discussion. We heard the people from Safe Haven come and make their arguments of why it's needed, which it absolutely is. It just, is not the right location. We just had one open, as you know, on Washington Street, which wasn't appropriate, a more appropriate location for the kind of shelter that was where they opened it. This one, we have an open play street there. They talked about monitoring trying to monitor the place, having people out front. They were going to try to do that and liaise with the NYPD to do that. Whereupon I chimed in, given our history with trying to get NYPD to come as crossing guards. They cannot take on this responsibility on a regular basis. They can come on an emergency basis and on a temporary basis, but they can't take it on full time. So the resolution passed. They do have the right not to listen to the community board and go forward with this plan. There was so much pushback that I would be surprised if it went. There was nothing to feel good about there for them to go forward with this plan. And there are a lot of other locations they can be looking at, which hopefully they are looking at. I don't know if we need to do another resolution. I think a joint resolution could have been ideal. And I talked to Tammy about, when something like this comes up again, to maybe even have a joint meeting with the two committees, because I think it can be really useful. There wasn't anyone there from the schools. There wasn't anyone there except for me and Morton, in terms of parents, people, with children in the school. And so the conversation was definitely different when talking about the school. And they didn't know the play, space times, I think it could be super helpful if we do that going forward. That being said, we were there, we were able to weigh in, and the discussion went the way it did, which we think is, I think, certainly I'd like to hear from all of you. And if people have different opinions, we can go forward with that resolution. I just wanted to sort of report back on what it felt like to be in the room, what points were covered, and the fact that it was an emphatic no. It was a unanimous vote by the QOL committee. So,
If I could make
Morton?
some comments as I'm on, are you on the quality of life?
I'm not.
I am.
Yeah, well, I am now, actually.
Okay, all right, well, anyway, I'm on the Quality of Life Committee, and I spoke at the Quality of Life meeting, and I echoed the position of a lot of the parents and PTA that this is not an appropriate site for a shelter, and I'm not a knee-jerk opponent of shelters, but I think that this shelter right next door to the school is bound to interfere with the operation of the school. in a lot of ways that Tricia explained, I'm not gonna repeat. Now, what is the deal with this shelter? We got a lot of information on quality of life. The way this has come about is that what happens is a developer, it's not like the city is going out looking for locations for shelters. A developer acquires the site, the developer then partners with a provider of services for homeless shelters. And it's what is it called? Breaking Ground is the name of the provider. And then the developer then comes to the city, there's an open request for proposal that says, come to the city with proposal for sites for shelters. And that's what happened here. The developer, who incidentally is a major fundraiser for Mayor Adams, that's a fact, that's public record. It's been documented in the media and elsewhere. They came to the Department of Social Services, Department of Homeless Services, whatever the city agency is, and they put this proposal before them, and it was fast-tracked through the system and proposed at the end of the summer without any community engagement, without any community consultation. And I mean, not the end of the summer, in June, when everybody was away, the school was closed, the teachers were not there, the administration were not there, the PTA was not meeting. But here's the hopeful part. They told us that no contracts were signed in. And my understanding was they don't even have, there's no contract. How it works is that the city signs a contract with the homeless shelter provider, which is the Breaking Ground organization. The Breaking Ground organization then signs a lease with the developer, the owner of the site. So the city then pays the provider to operate the shelter, and the provider then pays the money to the developer as rent. And this place was a former Hampton Inn, so it was a hotel. It allows the developer basically to operate a shelter with a very minimal investment, because how much investment does it take to convert a hotel to the shelter? Everybody knows what's going on with the current administration right now. A lot can change, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I'm optimistic that maybe that this is not going to happen, but we shall see.
Bessie? I feel like I'm in a really conflicted position on this, because I wholly understand how sort of ill-placed a safe haven shelter next to a school is. And I feel it puts us as a community board and a set of committees that are looking to ameliorate the lives of our community in a really kind of effed up place, to say that you have to go someplace else. I don't like being in the position of having to, hear people trafficking in stereotypes about marginalized people who have issues with addiction and homelessness. And, there are people who live in this community who are housed and have great jobs, who also have addiction and abuse people and do all of the things, but they have credentials and an address. And so it's a very, very fraught conversation to have, to say that you have to move this someplace else, because they do have to site this someplace else. And I don't know why they're so dead set on having it at this site. I don't know if there's something else that we don't know, why they,
To be honest, I don't think they're dead set on the site. I think the lack of foresight and the process that they have is lacking. And I think what we got to at the meeting was it should have never gotten this far. There should be a process in place where the vetting of the location is first. You know, and the way they've done it here is that the vetting of the place is last.
Right.
And I don't think they'll do that again, to be honest, because it's expensive and painful for them. You know, they're now at a point where they're ready to sign a contract and they have not signed a contract. So thanks for making it clear, Martin. And that's a terrible place for them to be.
And they have no community support for people who need support.
It
Like the
is.
people who go there, who are going to benefit from this shelter, or who hopefully would benefit from having a community that understands and empathizes and supports, you know, people's ability to be able to be housed and to recover and to, you know, get through their challenges. But they're not going to get the kind of support that's necessary for this population.
No. And there is plenty of vacancy. We were able to establish that too. Andrew?
So you referenced something that has been mentioned in prior meetings, that the opposition appears to be largely around the type of shelter they're proposing. If there were other considerations, if there might not be as strong an opposition to the plan, what was the response of the folks in the room regarding that? I mean, can they take this proposed shelter, put it in an existing facility and relocate something that might be more palatable to?
It didn't sound like they had that kind of flexibility.
Yeah.
Which was kind of surprising, but again, it's back to that point of this, they're doing what they should be doing first, last.
Mhm.
And so a long answer to your short question is that I'm sure along the way, there were opportunities to do that exact thing.
Mhm.
Now they've locked themselves in, and so it's gonna be a do or die. And then they're just gonna go back to the drawing board, and they're gonna start the process all over again. And so, you know, with every good discussion, you hope that the result will be that next time they will reorganize the way they go about it. I think it was illuminating for the people from Safe Haven
It's breaking ground.
and Breaking
I
Ground.
made the same.
Yeah, there
You
was-
go back and look at the tape or the video.
They were breaking
I said
ground.
breaking ground.
If you go back and they were very attentive and you could see the looks on their faces that they were hearing something for the first time.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? And so I think, again, I'm optimistic. And my hopes are that they'll go about this differently so that they catch it at that spot where they can, you know, do this. Because they are actively looking for locations for many shelters right now.
Yeah.
So what I would say though is there's a little bit of a backwards orientation to the way this works. It's not like the agency is going out and looking for locations for shelters. They are getting proposals from the
Right.
from the owners of the property and say, bring a shelter here. And maybe they have others that are out there too. There was supposed to be a shelter on Beekman Street, similar. And apparently the contracts fell through, at least as of this point. And whether that goes forward or not, it was near the Spruce Street School and people were up in arms about that. And I'm with you on stereotyping and drawing negative conclusions. But you know, the difference between the shelter at Peck Slip and the difference between the shelter on Washington Street is on Washington Street, they had, I don't know what the time frame was, but they had a long period of community engagement where they came before the community, they came before the local schools, they worked with the principal of PS 150, they worked with the PTA, and you know, some people will never be satisfied, but there was an effort that was made that is very different than the way they approached it.
So I have a question. Is the onus on the owner of the property to vet and, you know, figure out the siting of this?
That's a good question.
Or is it the vendor that comes in? Because it
You mean
seems,
like the operator of the shelter?
yeah, because it almost seems like they were brought in and there was maybe an assumption on Breaking Ground's part that the due diligence had already been done. So like they're like, well, we're here operating, you know.
I'm not gonna repeat stuff that is public in the media that I looked at. Slate Properties, which owns the site,
Mhm.
has a sideline, or maybe it's their main business, they're in the shelter business. That's what they do. They've
So they
done.
can know better.
They look for sites that they can convert to shelters and do it for profit. You know, that's their business. And they rely on being able to partner with providers, and then go to the city and get a contract to operate the shelters. Now, did Slate say, well, maybe this one is not a good idea because it's right next to the school? Or did they say, well, you know, this is not gonna cost us too much to convert because it's already a hotel and we can make money off of it?
Probably be.
That's a good question to ask Slate. I don't know the
It's
answer.
not have to come in front of the community board.
Exactly.
Okay, so if they're not required, then they probably are just hoping to proceed. The only reason they came in front of the community board in either of these is because people got wind of it. And they were then sort of shamed, to be honest with you. I mean, to be really honest, I think that's what it was, and they want to be good neighbors. It's not like they, you know, want to be, but hide. It's just that they would rather just go ahead and cite it and move in.
But to Morton's point, and he's correct, the city's not out looking for
No.
locations, they've outsourced that. They have had very direct communications with the development community. Here are our needs. As you identify opportunities, bring those forward. I'm pretty confident the answer to your question, it's the city who ultimately has the responsibility to determine appropriateness of shelter and location. It's not the developer, because they have a very different motivation and
Right.
interest. It's not the provider, although they should have a say in the matter. It's ultimately the city who owns it. And the city, which is why I'm so surprised, Trish, because you're 100% right. The city's laid out shelter needs for families, shelter needs for women, shelter needs. The developers know what the city's looking for. It would seem so odd that if there's a facility that will work for a different type of shelter, that there's not more conversation around.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, outsourced.
Yeah.
They've outsourced it, like, I don't want to hear about it, talk about it, you know, it's all yours. I think that's really where it is. I didn't feel any connection to the city agencies at all on this one. It was all developer. And it had gone way past that point. And I think, you know, like I was saying before, I think
Elected officials who were there, Chris Martin.
Chris Martin was there, but he was chasing it too. He hadn't heard about it.
Well, here's what I would say. I know, and, that there's been a lot of pressure, politically that's been trying to be brought, on the administration to change the plan. But the last we were told was at the general board meeting when the mayor's community representative came in and I asked her, you know, what's the deal? She said, as of now, but it was only the next day or so. As of then, the plan was as it was to go forward. That's what she said. Now, there's been a whole shakeup now in the whole mayor's administration.
It's a hot mess.
And,
And I frankly don't know how much they had to do with it. I think it's, again, like, I think that they really have outsourced all responsibility of this. And I think they were answering to Chris Marte's call, right? The second he got involved, that's when the mayor's office got pulled back into this discussion. I don't think they knew anything about it, to be perfectly honest. That's the feeling I got.
Which I think is obscene,
Yes, of course.
because this should be like a fully transparent process.
Yeah.
And the whole vetting process should be transparent. And, I mean, it's kind of shocking.
I've been working hard to try to make it more transparent.
And the amount of money, we know that there's so much money and the whole issue of shelters and like paying $350 a room, I think the city was paying in hotel rooms. And that's the story. I wish someone would.
It's true.
As an update, PTA at SLIP is meeting tomorrow morning. And there'll be a vote on whether to spend some PTA's money on the PASS organization, which is Parents for Safe Students, who's engaged in filing for a restraining order against the development of the shelter. I would think that vote would pass, that some of the PTA's rainy day funds would go to that. the last event that took place that was similar to this was the 250 water, remediation and development. That organization at least got the remediation put over till when the kids were out of school for the summer. And that worked out, and now the development sits fallow. But we also had a good result from Judge Arthur Engeron. Although it was overturned, it did delay the process more. I think if we get before someone like him who has, community in their mind, he could, in that decision, he said that he felt the Historic Buildings Association, part of the development and the city, had engaged in a quid pro quo, and I think this is a very similar situation where, as my friend here said, the developer with close ties to the mayor has done something in the process that is obviously opaque to everyone sitting here that's been involved in frontline government for so long. So I'm hoping that goes on. Also, when we approach the principal about it at the first, principal's.
Are you from Bexley?
Yes.
Okay.
The principal's new. She took over from a retiring principal. I think she's a very capable person, but she seemed very reticent to stick her neck out in a city agency versus city agency contest for anything. I think due partly to the temperature over at City Hall, and I think also she was aware of the school's chancellor leaving before we all knew in the newspapers. So the ability to get second school safety agent is really, the only avenue is really through the NYPD. And what I've been told is that, single grammar schools, K to 5, are allotted 1. Schools that are K through 8 are allotted 2. High schools have a different profile. And that it would be very rare for NYPD to shift any resource toward Pax-Lip, nor does the PTA really have the budget to, we've paid for science teachers, we've paid for
They should
arts
have to
programs.
pay. They
I
should,
don't
I'm
think,
not even sure they're allowed to pay.
yeah, I don't
They
know
might-
that even
I don't
if
think
we
it falls
were,
into the category.
that budget, that we could meet that need. So they are still working on it, and I'm hoping that we make some more progress, and at least delaying it,
Well, one thing that you should know, what they did say is that at the last meeting, that the earliest it would open would be in January.
And there's work going on, and like you said, it's very close to being a turnkey operation.
Well, the work that's
To
going
house people, they've taken mattresses
So
out.
Mark, let me
perhaps.
take some of these questions online.
Ms. Vega, unmute yourself.
Hello? Lisa?
Sorry. Yes? Did someone call me?
Do you have a question?
No, I was just asked to unmute myself, so I wasn't sure. I had just made one comment in the chat, so I didn't know if
I'm sorry, I thought it was, you wanted to speak, so I'm gonna read it, okay?
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah, it was just yeah, sure.
To suggest the mayor's office didn't know anything about it. This location was directly approved by one of Adams's deputy mayors, and Adams has long-standing ties with the real estate developer that bought the property, FYI. So, there is definitely a connection with it, but how long ago is that question, right? Like that conversation could have been 3 years ago.
Right.
And then they outsource the developer and then they go about their business. And there should be accountability from the mayor's office on where these are cited. So thank you. Jenna?
Yes, hi. Just, I wanted to make the point that, there was this comment about the city is sourcing for family shelters and for couples shelters and women's shelters. The shelter on 105, when it was pitched to PS 150, was a couples shelter. So the accountability for what is actually pitched and proposed versus what opened last week is a single men's and single women's shelter. Where is that accountability with the mayor's office? And, you know, that's kind of some of the frustration that we just continue to feel around 105.
Is that Washington Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that shouldn't be allowed.
Sounds like the ultimate bait and switch.
One of the things that I did ask in the last meeting was that Breaking Ground present to us some sort of proposal that builds a budget around security for the school.
That's a great idea. I think also understanding the rules and the texture of what clients would be housed there. And, you know, I know some shelters men have to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. They can't return until 5 o'clock in the evening, depending on what, you know, this, I don't know how a safe haven differs from some of the other models, but I think it's important to know that if the whole shelter is emptying out in the morning as the kids are coming in, and then they're all returning, you know, my expectation would be high or drunk at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the after-school programs are leaving. Then the community's really inviting ridicule in the sense that, you know, even if kids are protected, there are other adults that might not be safe in the community. The Southbridge Towers has many residents that are elderly that have lived there since the 70s. And so, you know, the whole community at large has a lot to lose.
Well, I think also the conversation around safety, like, we spent a lot of time on that at the meeting. And the bottom line is that they don't have the resources to do it continuously. The city will never do it continuously. And so we can sit there and talk about it all day and all night. But the reality is it's not going to happen. And to create the false belief and having that be a contingency on this plan, we just decided as a group to drop it and go with the no. And then if they end up doing it, at that point, then we start advocating for the safety plan, because they're much more likely to put it in place too, if they go against the community's wishes. And then at that point, hopefully someone will come up with the money and a contract, a safety contract that involves a full-time job. Because we know that, and that's our next topic, we know that the track record for part-time jobs for safety is not so good. Is Janine again?
No, it's, yeah, same, yeah.
Janine Zalesnik again. Just want to jump in on sort of the population for that shelter and going back to that open RFP process. I think that those of us who were at the last quality of life meeting heard that loud and clear, that it's just an open RFP. Anyone could submit for anything. And there was no, as discussed on here, there was no clear accountability of who, if honestly anyone is vetting the appropriateness of these sites. As a private citizen, I really don't know like where this would be found, but I'm wondering if anyone could find the specs that would be needed to have a shelter that was for women and children or for families, as opposed to the build out that they seem to be doing for a single shelter. And I wonder if by finding those specs, if that could be one way to put some pressure on the city to change the type of population that is there. That, for instance, if it were a family shelter or a migrant shelter, that would be a much more appropriate population to be located next to Peck Slip. And I'm wondering, I know that the community board doesn't have the ability to stop it, but I'm wondering if somehow by putting some pressure to make it slightly more appropriate, that might be an angle that would help alleviate this issue. Thank you.
That was the whole angle at the meeting. That's how we left the meeting, is that I think everyone was in agreement that if this could be a family shelter or a women's shelter, that we could revisit this as a community. They were very clear on that. And they do have needs there. They even said that at the meeting, that they definitely have needs in a family shelter and women's shelters, for family and women's shelters. It's just that this is the one they assigned to that location. Clearly, no one had their boots on the ground on this. in any way, shape or form. It would have been just as easy for them to cite that shelter there, you know? And I think they're just caught now, they're stuck because, they've committed to it.
It's
And now
really-
they're gonna have to figure out how to manage all that.
It would be really up to, the developer to reimagine the shelter and to submit a different proposal.
Exactly.
But, you know, that's the proposal they submitted, because they don't, it's not like, I tried to get some answers to at the quality of life, meeting, but it would seem, the developer has to partner with a provider to come to the city. They don't say, oh, the developer, well, we'd like to do a shelter here. What kind of shelter might it be? Who can operate it, whatever. They come to the city with a specific proposal with a provider. And in fact, the issue with the shelter on Beekman Street next to the Spruce Street School is that I understand, I think that's what I heard, was that the deal fell through with the provider. So once the deal fell through with the provider, then the developer's out of the running. So the city gets the proposal from the developer with the provider, and they deal with the proposal. It's not like they're looking for somewhere else or some other type of plan to operate at that location. This is the plan that's put before the city, and it's like up or down on that plan. And you know, so it would be really up to the developer to withdraw the proposal and come back with a new proposal with a different plan with a different provider. Whether that's possible, whether that'll happen, remains to be seen.
So I'm curious, the position of the school PTA, if you can speak to that, are they opposed to a shelter of any kind?
No, I think what you, my friends have said here is they're not, the school in the last couple of years had a large influx of people from South America, and the community took that on, I think, you know, facing forward, got resources and clothes and food and books and et cetera to kind of hold people into the school, and that's happening now, and it seems like it's not a crisis, that the school handled it very well, and I think the PTA did as well. So I think if there were a family shelter or a women's shelter there, there'd be less, you know, concern. And I don't even think it's just that it's a men's shelter, it's that it's the St. David model, which, you know, deals with people with addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol. And I don't know in this model if, you know,
Even more
Bridgeways, more, now I can't remember.
Breaking Ground.
Do they provide wraparound services like, you know, some of the child welfare agencies? Do they, you know, outsource, you know, do they send people down the street to a methadone clinic? I think, you know, I don't know what they do, and I'm interested to know it, because if they had in-house things, and I knew that people were going to A&E within the shelter. You know, you see me saying they're doing something else that might abate some of the concern. They haven't been clear about what really the model is and what this organization will do in implementing it, other than just house people, which, you know, it's helpful to.
Well, I think Breaking Ground has a definite program, but I think that they operate this type of shelter. I don't know that they do family shelters or migrant shelters or other types of shelters. I actually tried to advocate sort of behind the scenes that maybe they rethink this and make it affordable housing instead of a shelter at all. That was out there. I was told, like, hold off. Let's see how this.
Do the budget tonight?
Yes, we do have to do the budget. So we're gonna move along, but, Lucy's gonna print out the resolution.
Oh, look, it came up.
Amazing. So here's the resolution that
When I
we
sit
have.
down, it's gonna go away.
And then we can just decide if we feel as though, we need to make another resolution. We're taking a committee poll on tonight. If everybody just takes a quick look at this, and let us know whether you think that there are points that you think could be compelling to add.
I appreciate everybody's
Sorry,
time
what are we
tonight.
looking at?
Would you like let me know if I need to print out.
Is this the resolution we're supposed to be looking at?
Yes.
Hold on one second.
This is the first responder?
This is the quality of life passes on this
I
shelter.
do the.
Is this the same one you said?
No, I don't think this is the right resolution.
That was last month. But you sure was.
This one is 9/11.
It's in there, huh?
And that's 9/11 responders, but it's that meeting.
I think they passed it. Maybe it was the previous.
A joint resolution between youth and ed and quality of
It
life?
would have been better,
Yeah.
but we could pass another one. I just don't know. It was a really comprehensive resolution. So I'm not sure.
Maybe it was executive, let's see. I don't know where it
I
was.
mean, conceptually, I'm in favor of piggybacking versus doing it separate, just conceptually, and I.
Yeah, I am too.
Especially if
So-
they already did. Where can we agree with that?
That was the meeting. Hold on.
So did they draft a resolution? Are you sure?
Yeah,
No, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they did. Well, that-
They who, quality of life?
Yeah.
You know, now that I think
No,
about
they
this.
did not. See, Trish is not here. The only resolution they did.
I don't remember.
They discussed the 320, is that what we're speaking of?
Quality of
I
life?
thought
No.
Pat did it cute.
What's the whole agenda?
I know Morton.
The six?
I don't remember.
I could have sworn she did a resolution on this. That is so crazy. Well, then maybe we need to.
Back to the agenda.
It wasn't executive? Candidates.
Transportation. Finance, no.
So-
All right, well, then it's something to consider then. I mean, it was an hour and a half discussion. I thought for sure it had been.
I don't see one, so.
So, guys, I'm happy to, whip this up. If we want to go over the points of it, it might be really useful to do that now. Lucy's saying there was no resolution at that meeting for that topic. I thought for sure there
There
was.
was a resolution at the prior meeting,
Ah, okay.
at the meeting in June.
Okay.
Could have sworn I heard that they had done it.
No, they did a resolution in June, and the reason, how we left it at quality of life is that they would come back this month and report. to us on
Okay.
progress.
Then I suggest we hold off.
Yeah.
There we go.
Did that resolution
Yes.
go before the full board?
So let me.
I believe so. In
Yes.
fact, it was adopted.
Yeah.
I think it was like hastily proposed at quality of life and then drafted
There
for
we
the
go.
full board.
Can I see the bottom?
Bottom where, there, for here we go.
After the PTA meeting? Okay, good.
It was like an emergency meeting at the end of June. Are you on quality of life?
Yes.
I know, I just like hard for me to remember
I know.
who's where and whatever. So, yeah, remember there was, people came down, they spoke in June, they
Yeah.
were pretty sad.
Definitive position statement.
I think we're good.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. I think let's wait and see when they come back. I think at that point, I might reach out to Pat and see if we can do a joint. If it gets dicey in December. Right. Okay, moving along. Bob's not here and Kelly's not here.
So you don't wanna.
Well, I mean, we can just report this really quickly. The construction at 234, this is a scaffolding report. It stopped for months. The front part of the school fence and yard was completed end of summer. Yesterday afternoon, to Bob's surprise, he heard some banging on the brink work coming from the west side of the building where the dog runs. At any point, if you feel it's important, maybe with your connections at school construction, we can ask them if they. So that's all he's got. So he wants,
What's that as a next?
yeah, so I will reach out to SCA and see if we can get an update, and then he can then bring it back next month, and hopefully all the answer. All right, let's get to our budget items. May I suggest that we put this crossing guard at the top once more for the 7th or 8th time?
Which
think,
crossing guard?
So we only have one crossing guard, full-time, not full-time, but just consistently at any of our schools right now. So we really need to, for a little while it was okay, the NYPD was covering at 150. They were able to dispatch this one person and then suddenly they weren't available anymore. So
If we had one per school, how many should we have?
five,
We have none. So we have 1 out of 5.
we have 1 out of 5.
And it's just incompetence.
The one is where PSA.
And the one I think is Fletcher.
234.
2:30. Oh, yeah, that's right. There is a crossing guard every morning at 2:30.
So 276 sporadic coverage, same with 89, X slip like almost never. And they have that ramp, that off ramp of the drive. I mean, the situation is ridiculous. So I'm going to propose that that's top of the list. And the reason is that 1 out of 5 of our schools has full coverage and that someone's gonna die. So maybe we could just put that as the reason.
Yeah.
And then I think, maybe we can talk about another resolution. We didn't go as far in the past to tell them exactly how to do it. But I'm thinking that at this point, because usually the strategies that we used before were saying what the need was, saying that it was urgent and it needed to be done. Because when we ventured into that territory of telling them how to do it, they came back saying how that particular thing was impossible, and then the whole issue got dropped. We're now at a point with this that we've seen so many of their approaches fail. The most important of which is that they have this in control of the NYPD. The first precinct right now is the one who runs the ads, vets, and hires the school crossing guards. Consistently over the past 3 years, they have said that the process is so challenging. They get guards, they get them trained, then they disappear. They start the job and then they quit the job. So, which could be very true. But my guess is also is that they're not the type of agency that's able to manage crossing guards. So crossing guards are people too. And crossing guards, you know, they have to go out on family leave. They have maternity. They get sick. They move. You know, things happen. And everything's fine until that happens. And then the NYPD goes like this. They can't handle that. That kind of setup, I think, is really DOE. I think it really is at least school safety division of the NYPD. Because it's more in their wheelhouse. So I would like to propose when the time comes that we at least have that discussion in the committee about proposing a solution and handing it to them. Because everything they have proposed over my tenure anyway has failed. And it's certainly with the NYPD, to no fault of the NYPD. Remember they finally had gotten coverage at 4, and then we had some major emergency. I can't remember what it was in the neighborhood, and they pulled them all. And then the schools were without them again for the next, year after that.
So I have a question / comment. Like, I remember this conversation many, many months ago.
Years
Maybe
ago.
even a year, yeah. Yeah. And I remember the representative that we had who came in and he rattled off a few things as to like why this is such a challenge. And like one of the things he mentioned was like the whole campaign around defunding the police. And I was like, back it up. Like, what's that about? And so I understand that defunding the police is a very provocative slogan, but it was really about redirecting funds to agencies that were better able to equip, certain situations, mental health situations, right? For example. And so it seems like this is another kind of situation where no shade to the police, but maybe they're just not equipped to handle this kind of, it seems like they're human resources kinds of issues that keep coming up. And so if they're not equipped, then how do we is the suggestion to put this in the hands of the DOE because they are more equipped to deal with the human resources needs of this position?
I think so, and they're more set up, they do so many hires like this and manage so many hires like this. So at least the school safety division, like school safety has a little bit of NYPD here and a little bit of DOE there, and they work together. So those are the guys that deal with the front desk people at the school, the security people at the
Right.
front desk, right? That's run by school safety. And my suggestion is putting it in that bucket. That goes incredibly well. Those school safety agents, they're always staffed.
Is that part of the reason that we only have one and we don't have five? That it's just,
The NYPD.
it's not an attractive position
It
because
may not,
people.
it may not just
Can
be
they get that
management.
managed well?
It's a question of, do they budget for it? I mean, I know they had the campaign a couple
They
of.
do have the money for it. They ran school and the training. And then the comment was, they have all these graduates coming up in May. And then after they graduated, a couple people decided they didn't want to do it anymore. One was waiting to hear back from them and NYPD never got back to them. She was ready to work and then contacted the community board saying, no one's calling me. It's just a clear situation of, we can't handle this.
Well, it could be, but like the lifeguards in the pools, and what they have a hard time hiring lifeguards in the pool, so they end up in the summertime, they don't have enough lifeguards. And one of the reasons, if they paid them more, they would get more lifeguards.
They pay their lifeguards handsomely. I have to say, my daughter was one,
Mm-hmm.
but my daughter went out and got her own training in Nassau County
Yeah.
and then came back and pitched them for a job. Like, there was no outreach from even
Yeah.
Manhattan Youth looking, and Bob's like, you know anybody? Like, they're not giving you any help at all.
And you also have to sort of invest in that kind of program.
Yeah.
Like one of my very good
Exactly.
friends runs, started, in the after-school space and then started running youth development. And she was able to get a grant to get funding to specifically train lifeguards so that they, were well-paid, well-trained, and then they were able to shepherd.
Well, now Manhattan Youth has that. They at least have recertification. I know, because Helen did recertify with them in January of this year, which was fantastic, because it's an expensive class.
Yeah, you
So
have to invest
they
in sort
have
of that program, whether, if you just say, hey, lifeguards come, and you're not getting them, then that means that there's something sort of missing there.
I was only half joking, it literally has been years that we've been talking.
Yeah.
about crossing guards, and we can kick around the various reasons, but what we know is we're sitting here, it's been years of inaction.
Yeah.
And we have to try something different. I don't think we can continue to pursue the police department because they've shown no ability to manage it. It can't get worse. We have 1 out of 5.
Yeah. So let's say that at the top of the list, Lucy, is crossing guards. And that we would like to talk about, because they make us put the agency here. We would like to talk about changing the agency to school safety. So I don't know how you do that.
There's an agency for school safety.
For DOE.
Well, it would be a division of the DOE.
But isn't the school safety officers now under the NYPD?
Okay.
Or did
All right. You can put DOE.
I think they keep moving them back and forth.
Can you put DOE and then in the committee comments, make reference to school
Absolutely,
safety?
we could do that.
Yeah, I think de Blasio took the school safety officers out of the NYPD and put it in the DOE.
Yeah, then one time they had moved it back.
Yeah.
And now I think they both sort of have a little hand in it.
Okay, so.
You gotta go?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a-
We won't have too much longer, but thanks for coming.
I'm so sorry.
So basically what Zach told me to mention is, look at the list, is there anything you wanna add or remove?
Well, I definitely want to reprioritize.
Well, I don't think that really makes a difference, because it's just, it's your list for you. You see when you go down to 6,
We
7,
need to
8,
have priority.
right, what I'm saying, and hold on a sec. 6, 7, 8, but then you have 12 and 13 from another 8 for another committee, and so on and so forth. You
I
see what I'm
see,
saying?
gotcha.
And then he wants to make sure that the Niagara, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, on the 3rd page is review and reread it if necessary. So that's what he pointed out.
Which one?
Was that?
The narratives?
Yes. So either reread it or just leave it alone. But what he mentioned to me this evening was check the list, if there's anything you want to remove or add, and that's what.
Okay, so I would say, library hours, restore funding to, fiscal year '08 levels to provide increased hours. Diverse programming, strong collections, and sufficient staff. I think that has, NYPL is in favor of this project, but added to restored city funding is required for all expense budget costs and needed capital costs. They will continue to work through it. Yeah, I think they've responded to that and actually taken an action on that. So I'm actually surprised to still see that on this list.
So which one is that?
The first one, the extended library.
Public library, I think they have restored the funding and that things are good there. I have not heard any more complaints. Has anyone else heard complaints?
The hours did extend too.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the city council made a big fight and fought for increased funding for the public library.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's good, Lucy. I think the crossing guards is a big one. Educational program requests, expand student MetroCard program, that's also been handled.
Yes.
That's completely done. That's nice.
People are selling them.
Yes.
Oh, man. Oh, you haven't heard that?
No,
I'll show you.
that's awful. ADA compliance studies for public schools.
What's that?
I
It says
never-
denied, interestingly.
It's not recommended for funding. Provide funding for ADA compliance studies. For public schools, well, all schools have to be, I guess, the older ones.
What's ADA?
Just a,
Disabilities, just.
Oh, the disability.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think all of our schools have had ADA studies and approval. 234, I know, had one in 2012, because that's our oldest school. And all the other schools were built after the requirements were already in place. So I don't think we need that one either.
150 is brand new as the old.
Yeah. So we can let that go.
Is that why it was denied, maybe?
Probably.
Is it needed?
Construct a new public library in the vaults of Manhattan anchorage of the Brooklyn Bridge. CV1 does not have a public library south of Murray Street nor servicing the east side of Lower Manhattan.
To have a public library on the east side, especially
Yeah.
looking at Smith houses, and that would be, I think, a
Yes.
wonderful thing to do. But, where the site should be, I'm not an expert.
I agree with Morton in saying to not be specific with the location. Because again, they might just throw this down. That's a super controversial location.
Oh, we did feasibility study and to know.
So what, can we just say, Lucy, that we'd like a new public library on the east side? We really need that.
And take out vault of the.
Yeah, remove the location.
Is that statement, CB1 does not have a public library south of Murray Street?
I think that's probably
We
true.
have one in.
Where's the one in Battery Park City?
It's just north of Murray
Oh,
Street,
okay.
literally,
Okay.
probably between Murray and Warren,
Right, but on Park Place.
behind Park Place.
Yeah.
The one over near Broadway is on Murray.
I'm thinking of the one in Battery Park. I thought it was south.
The
It doesn't
Battery
matter.
Park,
It's,
It's right by Asphalt Green.
It's between Murray and Warren on South End Avenue.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's all the way over there, and it's like, we need one on the east side where
Yeah.
kids are, right?
We certainly don't, I mean, the southwest side, I don't think we need it. I think it's really the east side that needs it. There's nothing
The only
east of City
closest
Hall.
one on the east side is you have to go all the way to Chinatown, by Chatham Square, it's a little bit. more.
Somewhere near the seaport or northern Fidei would be ideal. Okay. So you got that. Improve traffic and pedestrian safety. I would say that's probably still very much a need. Including traffic calming, renovate or upgrade a middle or intermediate school. I don't think we need a middle school at this time. And none of the middle schools have reached out to the community board about needing a renovation. LMC is fairly new. The other schools are quite new. I know PS 234 could really use a bigger auditorium. I think they've reached out to the city council on that one to see what might be possible.
How does that happen?
Well, because the school was built for, 4 to 5 sections on a grade. Right now, they might be back to that.
I mean, but like, how would it be bigger?
It can't be bigger in that spot. They would just need some sort of, they did have, and still might have an annex. And they might be able to convert some space now that they're not overcrowded anymore. Now they're actually under enrolled. Magda told me. So,
A couple months ago, somebody said like the ratio was like 26-1, do you remember something?
at PS 234,
Class sizes?
I think it's smaller than that.
You think it's?
I don't think it was.
It's lower than that at 234. Oh, it's Stuyvesant. Yeah, that's the lowest that's been in a long time. Yeah, I mean, the class size mandate is 25, but they haven't met the class size mandate, which we'll be talking about come spring in here. But traditionally our high schools have been 32 to 37. My daughter walked into a class of 37. And the public schools have been, 234 has always been 20 to 23 in K1 and 2. But then it will pop to 25, 26 by the time you get to the 6th grade. And then in middle school, it gets into the low 30s. Terrible. So there is a mandate, they're just not meeting it yet. And they're saying, they have gotten up to, Kelly McGuire was here and he'll come back in the spring. But, they have reached, I don't want to just shoot off the hip because I'm being recorded, but they had made gains towards compliance that they were not there and not feeling confident about this year because of funding. So that's TBD. And I don't think that is a budget item. That's a DOE item. That's a mandate. So we're gonna just say, construct that public library on the east side. So we've got, crossing guards. We have safety measures on the streets. And we have the, what I just said, the public library on the east side. And lastly, the renovation at the 81 New Street elevators. We definitely need to keep that on the list.
Should I go send
Yeah, it's the same address, 81 New Street is 75 Broad, it's just the other entrance. Yeah, please contact the agency for more information. It's not a good response. There were people getting stuck between the floors and the door was opening.
Yeah.
So that needs to be dealt with immediately. And that's all I got. Does anybody else have anything?
If it doesn't based on what yourself when you get any, I'll just leave it at it.
This last part? Please consider the following guidelines to check to ensure responses refer to the issue. They do. Within each narrative, explain the need. We did. Reference, research, and figures to be sure. I don't think we need to do that.
The narrative that's on page 4 of this handout, we're striking that. Last year's narratives, construct a sufficient number, we're striking that, we're keeping that.
Yeah, the class books, this is just so old. This says class sizes must be brought back to Bluebird density guidelines. That's not
Right.
what we're doing
So
anymore.
we're striking this.
Yeah, I think the whole thing
I
can
agree, I
go.
just wasn't sure. Because that's
Yeah, but if
one
last
where I'm not
to
sure the
reduce the
narrative.
seats, the people,
Well, the
then
thing is that we could convert that to saying, construct a sufficient number of school seats in CB1 to meet the Kathy Hochul's class size reduction mandate. That we could say. So let's say that.
It's not even Kathy Hochul's anymore, it's now the state of.
It's now the state of New York. So I'm happy to write this up. Do you want me to do this tonight? Okay. I'll write it up
Send it to me.
and send you our
Next
narrative.
we get it, I'll just send it and we'll keep it.
Okay, I can do that.
Are there any items we can propose to add to this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just added PS 234, big order.
So
Can add anything else? Ruben?
I'm wondering if we take portions of the narrative on page 4,
Uh-huh.
the narrative that's on the right, which talks about recreational facilities,
Oh, yes,
particularly indoor.
yes.
We have we're so stretched on indoor recreational facilities for schools.
Absolutely. I will-
Outdoor, we're making do, but indoor, It's just
I'll add that for sure, Andrew.
a study to cite potential indoor recreational facilities. And I would stress for school, prioritizing school use or school access.
There was a proposal when I was on the Parks and Waterfront Committee to use the space along next to the seaport,
Yeah,
but I don't know whatever happened to that.
Well, there was also the conversation about World Trade 5.
yeah. Both have gone nowhere.
They have gone nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. So I'll add that in too. Anybody else have anything to?
Just let me know we're gonna add them, or you're just gonna send it and I'll.
I'm going to write the whole thing up for you and send it to you tonight.
But one last quick thing we discussed, I think in our June meeting, and this is outside of our district, so I don't know if we can weigh in at all, is with the whole East River Park Resiliency Project, reimagining what those recreational facilities will look like when they come back online. Again, that's not our turf, but I don't know if that's something.
I think we can because we use, our kids use
Oh,
the
of course.
Verizon field and all kinds of,
Our kids definitely, all of our programs.
Which is the Verizon?
Use that,
Lower East Side,
it's the Con Ed,
the track.
Oh,
Murray Bertram.
you know, they just opened the 2 new so-called ball fields along the river. I'm not sure if it's Delancey or Houses Street
Yeah.
along the river north of Pier 42. And Pier 42 is already starting to fall apart.
So we can ask for, why don't we ask for that as well specifically? Is that,
Say fall
is
apart.
part
It needs-
of the envisioning of East River Park that we, it's not really a budget that we'd like to weigh in on freshening up.
That's right.
I might, I don't know if we try and make it a budget thing, funding to assess the reconfiguration of East River Park recreational facilities.
That's a great idea. Let's do
Do we
that.
have a number in mind? Oh, I mean, of how many
How many,
facilities?
it's less about the facilities as it is the footprint. The way they had it historically was very inefficient. And I think I made the comment in June, with a smaller footprint, you could triple the capacity of what they were supporting. It just, it takes a plan.
Right.
Multi-purpose fields versus a baseball field here, a softball field here, or soccer, you build one massive multi-sport recreational facility all season.
It's much more efficient.
Yeah. It just doesn't limit use to a particular space. That's what they did at Gansevoort, and it's working out brilliantly.
They're also, they're also upgrading Corliss Hook Park. They're doing a lot of work on that.
They're doing resiliency work. They haven't done anything on the field itself. The field itself is a mess.
Well, I'm waiting for it. I've been passing it and
Yeah.
anticipating.
I'll take that back. They did some turf work, but that whole Corliss needs a big facelift. But it's under construction because of resiliency.
Okay.
All right, good. I'll add those two. Thank you, Andrew. And then lastly, I just want to say, we have a very small group of people here. I'd hope to have more of the committee, so I'll say it again in the future, but I have been chair of this committee for 12 years. My kids are juniors in college. And I felt as though it was time to pass this baton, and Morton and Desi have been kind enough to step up. And over the next few months, I'm just gonna be, working with them to make this transition. I am gonna be sticking around, so all the historical data that you need will be available. I'll be available to you for whenever.
Patricia Catalog.
You need me. I'm not going anywhere, and even if I were to go anywhere, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I have had such an incredible experience chairing this committee. We have been through incredible changes over this time, and most of them are good. And we've accomplished a lot. We have 5 new schools in the past 10 years, which is nothing short of a miracle. And it's because of the efforts of this committee, along with our elected officials, that we got that done. And, it feels like a great time to make this transition. So I just want to thank you all for this honor. And I'll be saying it again at another meeting down the road, but I wanted to let everybody know that Morton and Desi are going to be hugging the table here as we, make this transition.
Morton and Desi, thanks for stepping up, but you have enormous shoes to fill. Tricia,
Agreed.
the work you've done, honestly, you've been a war horse in driving things through, and you've been just so invaluable to this community.
And it's an honor to watch you work.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. It has been an honor to work with you all, and, you know, it really has been taking a village, for sure. But I've really enjoyed every minute and so appreciate your support. And like I said, I'll still be here for, you know, a while as we do this. Probably our target, I think, is January. And then you guys will be off and running, and I'll be sitting there. And, we'll take it from there, but, again, we'll talk about more later, but I wanted you all to know. And then spread the word.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned?
Meeting adjourned.
Sharon, have a good night.
Good night.
Lucy, what do you want us to do with all these?
No, I'll take care of it.